Hi students, in this video what I'm going to do is go over a few examples of classical conditioning. And so I'm going to give you the example and then I want you to pause the video and figure out what the unconditioned stimulus is, unconditioned response, conditioned stimulus, and conditioned response, as well as if any of these other factors play a part, like extinction, spontaneous recovery, generalization, discrimination, or vicarious conditioning. After you get that figured out, press play and I'll give you the answers. So this is a great way to see if you really have classical conditioning down before you take your test. So here is my first example. While caring for a friend's dog, you notice that it displays a fear-like posture as you roll up a newspaper. You try this several times more and become convinced that this dog is generally afraid of rolled up newspapers. So that is your example, and you need to figure out what these four things are and if any of these play a part. Okay, now that you have hopefully figured that out, let's go over it together. So this dog is afraid of newspapers. Your first thing you should think through is this something that every dog is afraid of? If you take a newspaper to every dog on earth, are they going to automatically start acting afraid? The answer is no, not every dog is afraid of newspapers. So that is how you know this is classical conditioning, because that is something that this dog has learned. So, the unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response. This is going to be what is natural. This is the unlearned part of it. Every dog on earth, what is the response you're going for here? That's going to be fear, because that's the response that this dog has. So you know that's also going to be the conditioned response. Any dog on earth, what is going to make them afraid? What is going to make them afraid is getting beat. Now, any dog on earth, if you beat them, it's going to make them afraid. This dog is afraid of the newspaper because for this dog, if the dog sees the newspaper, then the dog knows that it's about to get a beating. That's why it's afraid of the newspaper, because of what the newspaper entails. It entails a beating. So the conditioned stimulus is newspaper. The unconditioned stimulus is the beating. The conditioned response as well as the unconditional response are fear. So that is the four basic parts. What also could be going on here is generalization, because it's anyone holding a newspaper. It's not just the owner that beats the dog with the newspaper. So for example, I had a rescue dog for a while who was totally afraid of fly swatters. No matter what we did, no matter how long we had her, she was always very afraid of fly swatters. She would shake and run out of the room, no matter what we did. That is classical conditioning, and I am fairly certain that whoever had her before us beat her with a fly swatter. And so she had generalization, because even though we never hit her in all the years we had her, she was still afraid of the fly swatter that we had. Generalization of this fear response. So that is the first example. The next example is, at a red light, Bob and Fred automatically tensed and felt chills when they heard the screeching of tires behind them. Later, while watching a car race, Bob remarked how the screeching of tires was having little effect then. Fred agreed and wondered why they reacted at all, because neither had as much as a dent on his driving record. Neither of them had ever been in an accident, basically. So, pause the video and see if you can figure it out. Okay, let's break this down. So again, you have to think about two things. What is universal? Everyone on earth would have the same reaction to this stimuli. And then what is learned from these guys? So first, we will do the universal. And we'll start with the response. What is the response you see here? The tensing and the chills. So if it's the unconditional response, then you know it's the conditioned response as well. So what caused them to tense that is not universal, that is learned, and what is the universal thing that would cause tensing? Universally, what is going to cause you to tense up is getting hit by a car. So if the impact is going to cause you to tense up. So if you are in a car accident, it makes you tense. Anyone on earth, if they get slammed, they're going to feel that tension. Now, for these guys, what made them tense? It was the screeching of the tires. The reason they tensed when they heard the screeching of the tires is because they thought they were about to get hit. Conditioned stimulus tied with the unconditioned stimulus leads to that conditioned response. So it's not just the screeching of tires that's the unconditioned stimulus, because they didn't react to the screeching of tires at the car race. It was being at the stoplight, hearing screeching tires, and automatically making that connection, I'm about to get hit. That's what caused them to tense up. Okay, now for the other things that are going on here. You also have discrimination. The reason for that is they tensed when they were at the stoplight, but not when they were at the car race. The reason they didn't tense when they heard screeching tires at the car race is because they knew it wasn't about to be followed by an accident, by getting hit by a car. And so there was no reason to tense up. They were able to discriminate. In this situation, I should tense when I hear screeching cars, but in that situation, I don't need to. That is discrimination. You also have vicarious conditioning. The reason for that is they've never been in a car accident. They didn't learn this from their own direct experience. It's not like they've heard screeching tires and then been hit in the past. Neither's been in an accident. But universally, we tend to know, you learn from other people, from TV, from seeing other people get in accidents, that if someone's about to get hit, you tend to hear screeching tires right before that. And so because they've learned it from observing other people go through it, they now have that classical conditioning as well. So that is the vicarious conditioning part. Even if you've never been in an accident, you're still going to tense when you hear screeching tires. So discrimination and vicarious conditioning go along with this. Okay, for our final example, it is Bill couldn't ever remember being so sick and nauseated. He'd never go to that restaurant again, and he would never again eat chicken. All he could think about was the good dinner his mom would prepare for his homecoming. As he entered the kitchen, he became flushed and felt nauseated when he saw the golden brown turkey sitting on the table. Okay, so pause the video and figure out what's going on here. So let's go over these. First, we'll break down the unconditioned and conditioned stimuli and responses. So, you have to think, what is natural, unlearned? Everyone on earth is going to do this versus what he has learned. I find it easiest to start with the response. So his response is being nauseated. And what is going to cause everyone on earth to be nauseated? Not something you learn, natural, universal, unconditioned. That is going to be food poisoning. He got food poisoning from that restaurant. So, specifically, it appears he ate chicken to get the food poisoning. So for him, chicken is the stimulus that makes him have nausea. So when you get food poisoning from something, and you develop a taste aversion, you don't want to eat that again, that is classical conditioning. And if you remember from your book, taste aversions are the fastest form of classical conditioning you can have. They are learned very quickly because it helps with survival. If you get violently ill from eating something and the next day you're like, hey, I want to eat that again, you're not going to live very long. So taste aversion, very, very, very fast classical conditioning. It is very reasonable that he is going to avoid chicken for a long time because it made him violently ill. So what else is going on here? In addition to just the normal classical conditioning, you also have generalization going on. And that's because it's not just chicken that he has this conditioned response to. It is turkey as well. I bet any type of poultry is going to make this guy feel sick. So that is generalization going on here. Now, eventually, if he is able to eat chicken down the road or eat turkey down the road, that would be extinction. But right now, since it's so new, it is still strong classical conditioning with generalization. So that is the final example. Hopefully this helps clarify a few things, and feel free to go over these again or email me if you have any questions on them.